Now, the thing is that these 4 liquid strap-ons have to be first ignited so that it gives the initial thrust, and then the solid comes in, and the decision for the solid to ignite is taken within 1.2 seconds after the ignition of the 4 liquid strap-ons. And during that period of 1.2 seconds, the thrust level that the 4 liquid strap-ons develops is monitored, and unless all the 4 of them exceeds 95% of the rated thrust, the solid would not come into force. So this is the logic that was built in purely to protect the vehicle in case there is a high asymmetry in the thrusting of the 4 liquid strap-ons, in which case the vehicle can tumble and then you can have mayhem all around. So this was what the logic was. At the D-time, the exact time, the 4 liquid strap-ons ignited. And the liquid strap-ons, once it ignited, within seconds again, suddenly the thing was switched off. And of course, there were thermocol and other kinds of things protecting it thermally. They all started burning. And the whole world was watching the first flight of the GSLV. Not world in the sense, not Indians alone, everywhere, including our neighbors. They were all very keen to know how we are going to do in the first flight of the GSLV. And what happened is that we were monitoring it in this thing. 3 of those stages of the liquid strap-on, they had all developed the right type of thrust. It was flattening it out at the 100%. Only one of them went up to 85%, and there it had thing. So obviously the computer, the monitoring system has sensed it. And what is interesting is that after sensing it immediately, it has closed all the regulators and flow control valves and everything. The liquid flow was stopped, and also the computer disabled, onboard computer disabled the ignition from going for the solid strap-ons. So it's a solid core. And so the whole system seemed to have worked as we expected. It could have never been tested on the ground. I don't say this is a left-handed compliment to what has happened, but it worked in the way in which we envisage in case there is a problem of asymmetry in the thrusting of the 4 liquid strap-ons. And then we went into the details of this, and we understood this. I called the Prime Minister, it was Vajpayee at that time. Sir, we had difficulties, and I should say Prime Ministers were always very understanding, starting with Narasimha Rao, with whom I worked in 80s, and then went to Deva Gowda or Gujaral or Vajpayee. All of them were extremely understanding. He said, don't worry, ISRO is well known to have come out of this kind of problem. I am sure that you should be able to isolate the problem and have a successful launch. I said, so far the vehicle is concerned, sir, it has been saved, and it looks to be that there may not be major problems with regard to any damages on the other segments of the launch vehicle. So he said, please go and tell them that, tell your colleagues not to worry about it. So I conveyed this message. And when we got onto the task of identifying what the problems could be. It was a major task, but we got to the bottom of it by simulating all the things, and we found that there was a foreign material in one of those strap-ons. It had to be corrected for, and so we had to change that particular thing, but then we were worried where else this foreign material could be there. So we had to do a neutron radiography of the whole vehicle, and the Indira Gandhi Center, Nuclear Center at Kalpakam, and Baldev Raj in particular, he came forward with the help that we will do a neutron radiography of the whole vehicle. We did a neutron radiography and made sure that there are no areas where we have the problem of the type that we encountered in one of those stages. We changed it, and then of course the project director at that time, it was Dr. R.V. Perumal, he gave us a timeline to recover the whole program, which he said we will do it in 23 days from today. That was an enormous decision that we had to take, that we will not only correct it, we understand it, because we had a very tricky situation of decision making. We delay it much further. You know, all the consumables have to be replaced. If you go much further, then even the Russian cryogenic had to be changed. It can be anywhere from 6 months to 1 year or even 2 years. The whole program can be upset. And on the other side, if this is the kind of problems that we have identified, it has this advantage. So keeping both this in mind, we decided that we will go 23 days after the first attempt that we made. Corrections were all taken. We changed that particular stage. We checked everything, as I said, through neutron radiography. And then finally, they had that flight, and it was a beautiful flight. All the 4 stages worked, 3.5 stages, worked beautifully. The only thing is there was a small percentage fall in the thrust of the final stage, the Russian cryogenic, which the Russians admitted was more because their sensor could not really determine the level to fill the hydrogen to the full level. So there was a small reduction in the hydrogen availability, but then nevertheless it reached the in geosynchronous the transfer orbit, and we could take the satellite also to the geosynchronous orbit. So that was the first test, and I should say India probably is the first country we succeeded in flying a GSLV, a geosynchronous mission, successfully, even though it had this hiccup of an initial setback in terms of inability to launch it in the. But the best thing that has happened is that we could not only understood it, how to test it out, but we had also introduced things which we could not test on the ground. And but nevertheless, it happened in the way the vehicle behaved when this asymmetry thrust was there. And the best compliment really came from the American Institute of American Society, the Astronautical and Aeronautics Journal, American Journal for Astronautics and Aeronautics. They put in the editorial about the GSLV failure, and they said, what is incredible is that the Indians have mastered the methods of desaving the vehicle by means of controls in the flow patterns of the various components. And this is an intricate matching between the hardware and the software. This complex interplay between the hardware and software is an area which not many countries, even in the launch vehicle area, the countries have not mastered. They seem to have mastered this. This is a compliment for our rocket engineers. You are fantastic. They thought about this kind of a thing. They saved and had a first flight which was a successful. This is just to give you of the way, of course, the GSLV Mark III, which is going to ultimately be able to put us into a 4-ton class, one of the heaviest vehicles that we will be ever building and one of the best vehicles in the world, is now progressing well. So we hope that in the next 2 to 3 years, we should have a test flight of the GSLV Mark III. I want to say something about the decision-making process. I mean, there are many things that we do, and many things get accepted simply because of the fact that they relate to our main objective, which is remote sensing satellite for national natural resource management system, so natural resources management, or communication system like INSAT for meteorology, communication and broadcasting. And there are few scientific missions which are cost effective and which can nevertheless support the scientific community in the country, whether it is in astronomy or whether it is in the aeronomy or in solar physics and so on. But then there was this question of what is it that we should do more? Because space is an area which you need to have also the public attention all the time. If you start having regular launches of PSLV, from the first page it goes to second page to third page, and then maybe to the last page, and sometimes it doesn't get reported at all when it becomes commonplace. And similarly, you can have various things. But public awareness and public appreciation of space program, in most of the countries, they look for that as an important component of influencing the government decisions. So we need to come to that kind of a thing. So we discussed this, and we made a presentation on the second Pokhran day to a glitterati of, there were members of ministers and members of the parliament, there were people, the intelligentsia of Delhi, and there were many other, the scientific community, and of course very important people from the press and media. They were all there, and in a hall in Ashoka Hotel, with about 400, 500 people, we made a presentation about India's present capability in space on the Pokhran 2 day. And in that we added 2 or 3 possibilities, the possibility of reaching with the present PSLV and GSLV capability, the Moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and so on. So we try to put a scenario with our present capability, not that we have to develop a new capability. And then it was said that, so there is immediately, one can really think of reaching Moon with the type of PSLV capability we have and the type of satellite buses. At that time we had developed a Kalpana bus for the meteorological observation. So with this kind of a thing we can easily do this. So the press got into that, and next day there was a tremendous coverage of the India's objectives to reach Moon. So I think the first test on the ground of seeing what is the public reaction to this kind of a thing was very positive. A lot of youngsters wanted to know what we are going to do for Moon and whether they could work and so on and so forth. So we went through a whole process. The process involved sensitizing the Indian Academy of Sciences, Astronautical Society of India. We made special half-day sessions in these places to see what is the profile of a Moon mission. And then we had a committee under Dr. George Joseph, the former director of the Space Application Center, to look at the configuration of a moon mission and details of budget and other kinds of technologies. Are there anything to be developed, and the type of payloads which will provide the right type of science. So that then we had a presentation to the Parliament. The Parliamentary Standing Committee was presented with this concept. And all I can say is the Parliamentary Standing Committee, from the extreme right to the extreme left, all of them, there are 40 of them, and 30 of them came for that particular presentation. And they were not only appreciative, they gave a 4-page report that India's planned moon mission is a very well appreciated thing by the Parliamentary Standing Committee. All we want to say is that India should be much more, ISRO should be much more ambitious than just going for moon. So you can see the political support that we got. And then we, of course, went to the Space Commission and all the role of it. And then I went to the Prime Minister at that time, Vajpayee, and told him, this is what it looks like. We have got probably the support from all the segments of the society, including your political system. And this is where it stands. He said, where is the proposal? Proposal has been already, this thing, has it gone through the Space Commission? And I said, you are the boss, so we will get it through. You say, you get it through. And then he said, when can I make this announcement? I said, August 15th is coming, 2003. And maybe you can make an announcement that India is going to make a foray into the planetary exploration. Then he said, you please send me a note. So we sent a note to him. And he, of course, we called it Somayana. The mission of the moon will be called Somayana. And we didn't say anything, and we give a little bit background of what is Somayana, how much money we have to spend, and so on. So then he made an announcement on the ramparts of the Red Fort on the August 15th that India is getting into the frame, and this is what it is. And India in the next 4 years will launch a Chandrayaan-1 mission. That's how he put it. So next day when I went to his office and met him and told him, sir, we had given it as Somayana, you have made it into Chandrayaan. And we had just put Somayana, you have put Chandrayaan-1. So could you please elaborate what kind of thoughts went into your mind? Then he said, Sanskrit-wise, I feel Chandrayaan is a better word, and I also consulted some of my Sanskrit scholars, and they were all felt that Chandrayaan would be a better name. So he had done that kind of an homework. And then he said, Somayana, only one mission for India. You should think of a series and a vision for the future. So I added that one there so that you can have a continuity. So this is political contribution to our space program and the kind of planetary program. So, what we want to say is that normally these kind of things are left to us to decide. We decide it and we do it rightly, they trust you. And when they trust you, they don't wink the eyes a second time to find out what you are up to. So all the problem starts only we get into a regime where we have difficulties. So the scientific community and the scientific leadership has a very big responsibility simply because of the fact that these kind of trust from the political system is only because of what the scientists do or they don't do. And there is that puts onus on us. So I just thought I should mention it, and against the background of the Chandrayaan mission. Then, of course, my term was coming to an end. I had already spent 10 years and 9.5 years. And well, at the 8.5 years itself, at the age of 59, I told the Prime Minister that I want to step down next year. So you have to start finding the new person. And please don't do it in the last week of my tenure and have a skirmish as to whom I have to identify. And in the whole process, have a procedure for selection on which not my thought has gone, and I gave him all the dimensions of space program, where it has reached and so on and so forth. He said, we'll certainly do, I'll come back to you, he said. Then for quite some time, there was one year left for him to do that, but there was no such thing. Then I went to his Principal Secretary, Brajesh Mishra, and he said, nothing is happening, and Prime Minister has not given a decision, and he is also not looking for the next person. He said, नहीं, Prime Minister तो अभी तो सोचा ही नहीं उसके बारे में, आपको तो और भी 2 बरस करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि तो Prime Minister को अभी तो दूसरा कोई ये नहीं है. So this is the way he tried to convey. Then I met Prime Minister. He said, no, please don't. Right? There are so many other problems हमारे लिए हैं. तुम तो don't create one more problem here, he said. So he just left it at that. Then at the end of another 1.5 years, I sort of a letter to him. Then he told me that I will certainly not take you beyond 2003, but I have to make sure that I will have to do something for you. And then I said, sir, you don't have to worry about me. You have already worried about me, and we have done my job. He said, no, you please leave it to me. And then one Sunday, around July, he calls me on phone and then tells, I have decided to nominate you for Rajya Sabha. So I was stunned, because that is not an area that. Then he said, no, I have thought about it. I said, this doesn't seem to be, there are so many other things we can do. He said, no, you just think about it, because I have already given a thought. It has to go today, the paper has to go today, he told. So then he said, you have to give me an answer. I said, I cannot give you an answer on telephone. If you want to take an answer, you decide an answer for it and decide. Because so long I have explained to you and also advised you on space. This is an area in which probably you are a better expert than me. So you decide it. I left it to him. And he nominated me for it. It's a great experience to be in Rajya Sabha, I should say. A chairman of ISRO, he learns a lot about the country and its various resources, communication, problems of social nature, because you do a lot of social-oriented activities in space. So I think when you go into the Rajya Sabha, the best thing that I found was the members were able to, I could also relate to the members and their views by bringing in a scientific part of it and at the same time not overlooking the pragmatic aspect of a social component in which many of them discuss. And also there are the questions on strategic and so on. But the most things which I remember very well, and this was during Manmohan Singh's time, was this nuclear deal 1, 2, 3. And there was a very full day discussion in the Rajya Sabha about the nuclear deal. And there was this question of the parties vying with each other to say or not to say. And so I felt that this is a very important area, and the country certainly needs nuclear power as an important part of the power energy mix. And we cannot overlook it. And there is a lot of technology. There will be uncertainty. Every technology has an uncertainty. So all these kind of things were said. Then ultimately, he said that they gave me time. Normally, a nominated member has only 5 to 6 minutes. He never gets more than that, even though the political parties can speak for 1 hour and 1.5 hours and so on. But then I was asked to speak. The Congress said that you can take even any time you want, you speak, because we know that you're going to speak in favor of this. I said, that was not the idea of this. I like this. The idea is important and the acceptance of this is very important. That's why I'm going to speak, not so much because I'm going to support one party or the other. But they gave me as much time as I wanted. So I made one of the longest speeches, a 29-minute speech in Rajya Sabha. And I think it was very well received, and the Prime Minister showed a very special appreciation for the justification that somebody who is independent of the parties could make a justification on this. And so that was also coming to an end. This is one example I would like to say. So there was a question of me packing back from Delhi and then getting back. And again, like Vajpayee ji said, that at the end of the thing that you can go to Rajya Sabha. Here was a call from Manmohan Singh ji. He said that he would like to put me into the Planning Commission. There I am. And I have been working for the last 2.5 years. All I can say today, the science and technology is one area that has been very well revisited in very different aspects in the Planning Commission. The 12th plan envisages a very, very serious investments into the science and technology. In fact, I can say that it will be more than 2.5 times what was spent in the 11th plan. It will be a very large investment. We need to really address areas not only of enrichment, social sciences, including relating to various sector of economic sector ministries, water, energy, health, and so on and so forth. Then the third element is the state science and technology system. They are in very poor shape today. They are very weak. So we need to address that question. The importance of the strategic departments and their role in the socio-economic sector. Currently, I know DRDO is doing tremendous effort, ISRO is doing, atomic energy is doing, but I think they can come together and look at some of the broader aspects of what they have done in the context of strategic sector, which can then be translated for the benefit even in the overall context of the social area. This is another kind of a thing. And then, of course, you have international collaboration, cooperation, and so on. So these multiple dimensions have to be strengthened. And Prime Minister said that we can go up to 2% of the GDP. You know, the last plan it was 0.9% of GDP. And this time he has said 2%. It's an enormous hike in the science and technology budget. And most importantly, the direction that Prime Minister and the Deputy Chairman has given is that this 2%, 1% will come from the government sector, the government support, provided we are able to raise 1% from the corporate sector. So the effort has to be done to bring in the corporate sector along with the government sector, create a synergy, and considerably enhance the capability of the science in the context of the development. So that puts me to the final statement. So far we are talking of 2% of GDP for science. Many countries say science has contributed so much to GDP. At the end of 12th plan, or at least if not in 12th plan, at least in 13th plan, our scientific community has a major responsibility. can we say that the science and technology of the country has contributed so much of percentage to the GDP instead of the other way? So I think this reversal of the perspective of the role of science and technology in the context of development is the most critical need of the hour. We need to change the way we work. The governance of the scientific system has to be changed. The institutional framework has to come out of the silo approach to doing science and technology to an integrated national perspective. So there are many things that have to be done. But I think the time is now arrived for us to give a thought to this so that the vision of the Prime Minister is translated into something which can take India to the 21st century with the type of pride that all of us possess, and especially this community which has done so much for the defense and national security. And I use this opportunity to not only compliment for everything that you have done, but also wish you the very best in the coming years. You are the anchor for the national security, and you have the most important role to play, which you already played in many ways. So the country expects much higher from you, but I am sure that the scientific community is all with you, and so also the country itself. So every time you see some important developments from DRDO, it really tremendously puts pride into our heart. So I'm sure you will keep this on a sustainable basis and even take it to the higher height. I personally would like to wish you the very best in your endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your wonderful experiences, which are indeed an inspiration for all of us. May I now please request our chief guest, Shri G. Ilangovan, to honor the orator Padma Vibhushan Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan on behalf of Defence Science Forum by presenting him a memento as a token of love and respect. I also request convener and secretary of Defence Science Forum to kindly accompany. Thank you, sir. He is a person who thinks, plans, initiates, and successfully organizes all type of events and activities of Defence Science Forum. I now request the same person who has brought Defence Science Forum to these heights, the Secretary of Defence Science Forum, Dr. Rajiv Vich, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sir, before starting my vote of thanks, I would like to say a few words. You have made me too much emotional today, sir. Everybody listened to his speech very carefully. I found one thing which most of us usually forget. In his lecture, he has remembered his mentors, Vikram Sarabhai, Shri U.R. Rao, and Shri Satish Dhawan. So from Defence Science Forum side, and from his side, I like to convey a small message to all of us that either today or tomorrow, or maybe on Teachers' Day, we should remember our mentors, maybe in our college guru, or a university guru, or a DRDO guru. Please do that. Yeah, we should remember. Namaskar and good afternoon. Respected Padma Vibhushan Dr. Kasturi Rangan, Member Planning Commission, Ex-Director National Institute of Advanced Studies, Ex-Chairman Space Commission, former Member Rajya Sabha, and now Chancellor JNU. Shri G. Ilangovan Sir, Distinguished Scientist and Chief Controller, Research and Development, Avionics and Aeronautics, Dr. R. Muralidharan, Outstanding Scientist and Director SSPL as Convener Defence Science Forum for today's event, Chief Controllers, Directors and all the viewers of this function in DRDO, and the most valued invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I, on behalf of Defence Science Forum and the entire DRDO fraternity, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty thanks to all of you for gracing this occasion. Let me first of all start by giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. We have just listened to the powerful and thought-provoking oration by one of the highly accomplished and world-renowned scientist, Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan. This day will be remembered as a milestone in the history of Defence Science Forum DRDO, as it is the first occasion when a speaker with such illustrious profile has shared his views from Defence Science Forum platform. Thank you, sir. Dr. Kasturi Rangan served for more than 9 years as Chairman Space Commission and is the key stalwart who has brought out many successes for Indian space program. His services to the nation were recognized with conferring of Padma Shri in 1982, Padma Bhushan in 1992, and Padma Vibhushan in 2000, and maybe more to come. Today, Dr. Kasturi Rangan shared with us some pages plucked out of his life. Sir, we have been greatly enriched by your illuminating talk. A big thank you to Dr. Kasturi Rangan for his excellent oration. I am sure that the audience will leave the auditorium inspired and with something to ponder over. Thank you, sir. Shri G. Langwogan, sir, I, on behalf of entire DRDO family, guest invitees, and on my own behalf, extend to you a very hearty thanks for presiding over this function and sharing your thoughts with this august audience. We are all inspired by your great words. My words may not be capable of communicating our sense of gratitude to you, sir. I thank you from bottom of my heart and seek your kind advice, guidance, and blessings for Defence Science Forum. Thank you, sir. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Dr. R. Muralidharan, outstanding scientist and director, SSPL, for the timely help, support, and valuable guidance he has extended to all of us for conducting today's event. Thank you, sir. Well, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, an event like this cannot happen overnight. I am grateful to Dr. A.K. Mani, convener, Defence Science Forum, who has provided us with the required leadership for converting our plans into action. I sincerely thank all the members of my Defence Science Forum team for their hard work, and also Ms. Deepti Mongia, scientist from SSPL, for taking up the responsibility of Master of Ceremony for today's event. Besides my Defence Science Forum team, I have also heavily depended on the support provided by many directors, seniors, and colleagues. I will now place on record my special thanks to one and all who have helped us to conduct this important event. Finally, I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for all the dignitaries and DRDO colleagues who have spared their valuable time for this event, and also to all the viewers all over the country who are viewing this through webcasting. To conclude, let me once again reiterate that without you all, we will never have the courage to dream and the passion to make it happen. Thank you. Thank you very much. We shall now draw the curtains and let us stand in the respect of national anthem. Thank you. On behalf of Defense Science Forum, I invite all of you for a cup of tea in the lawns outside. Thank you.